Hey guys, welcome back to Thoughts We Share podcast. I'm Tinashe,
And I'm Nicole.
and today I'm going to be asking a few questions on last year. We're in 2025 now, and we're almost at the end of the quarter, which is crazy. 3 months have passed by. But me and Nicole just wanted to reflect a little bit on what our biggest takeaways from last year were. So, Nicole, what would you say your first biggest takeaway from last year was?
Well, I'd say the first biggest takeaway for me was I realized that a house that's divided cannot stand. And this hit for me as an individual and also in a relationship aspect. Obviously, it hit home when I reflected on my romantic relationship because I didn't realize how much we were very indifferent. Obviously, there was nothing wrong with our relationship and I was very happy. But I think when I realized after some time that actually there is room to grow, like our relationship was missing God, which is like a very, very, very big thing, because we just felt like, okay, in order for anything to work, like you can't love if you don't know God's love. And then I also use that to reflect like my own relationship with myself, and I was like, okay, what kind of relationship do I have with myself, and also what kind of relationship do I have with God, because I felt like my relationship with God was also divided. So I wanted to shift my focus and focus on God, because I was trying to do everything in my strength to just keep everything together without realizing that I needed to build that relationship with myself in order to feel great about all these other things. So looking back, I can see how obviously every challenge that I faced, whether in my romantic relationship or my other relationships, was showing me that I needed to pay attention, or I needed to set boundaries, that I needed to focus on myself more and lean on to God more, and just to try and see where do I align with this person? Is this the right person? Because I think I kept prolonging it. I kept procrastinating, I'll get around to it. But I had to really sit down and start writing and say, is this really what I want for myself? And also the most important question, is this really what God wants for me? Because at the end of the day, that's what I wanted more, what God wants for me. So that was my biggest takeaway, just realizing that I was unconsciously so far from God. I knew that my relationship with God was not great, but no, once I started reading the Bible and growing my relationship with God, I didn't realize that, oh my God, Nicole, you were so far. And the fear of God had left me, because I was doing whatever. I was drinking, I was getting up and I was drunk, all these things that obviously don't align with who I am now. So I actually love that I was able to, see that and experience that.
Do you feel like things had to break in order for you to rebuild? Because I think, because you spoke about change, right? That at the beginning it felt like, well, I don't really want to change this dynamic. It's not that you could see what let's say the bad side of it, how it wasn't beneficial at that point, at that exact point when you were holding on. But do you feel like you had to really let go and say, okay, I'm letting it break the relationship with myself, my relationship with my partner, and also my relationship with God, let it all fall, and then I can start rebuilding and deciding how that foundation is going to be?
Oh yeah, definitely. I feel like in order to to transform, something has to be destroyed. I think everything about what I knew at the time, which is basically talks about what we spoke about in our previous episode when we were doing visualizations and vision boards, where I had to let go of this version of myself that I'd grown to love, and realize that obviously that version wasn't the healthiest version, because there were so many other things so many insecurities, like imposter syndrome, all these things that were attached to that version. So I literally had to break everything and let it all crumble. It was
Mm.
so scary because I didn't know how it would look like when everything was rebuilt. I had to literally let go because at first I was so scared to let go. I wanted to change and hold on to my partner or hold on to something so that if it fails, there's something to go back to. But
Mm.
in this instance, I had to let it all go. And that was so scary to me because I was so scared that, like, what if when I get up on the other side and that person's not there anymore, or like a lot of people, my circle, my friends, like everyone might not be there with this new version of me that I'm trying to build. So it was very hard because I had to just be willing to lose everything I needed to lose to move forward, which is
Mm.
always difficult, especially like when you've grown to love the people you were, or if it's, at least if you think that you're going to have a future with someone and not knowing that what your transformation is going to look like. Because maybe you might think you're like what I said, you might think everything's great. And then when you take time to reflect and look at obviously the deal breakers, your non-negotiables, you might actually get there and think, me and this person are actually not compatible. We don't want
Yeah.
the same things. And then having to obviously be realistic and let that go. I was so scared. And I think that's what prolonged the process for so long because I was like, I need to hold on to this. And maybe confronting the things I need to change means
Mm.
this person's not going to be in my life anymore. So that was very difficult. I had to force myself and literally push myself to whatever it is going to be for the better of me. Do you know
Yeah.
what I mean?
Yeah,
Whatever it is.
definitely.
Mhm.
I get
Yeah.
what you mean. And I think, like you said, it's quite scary to face that and even just accept what's happening. I know, especially with breakups or where you feel like you've lost yourself a little bit and you want to kind of come to yourself,
Mm-hmm.
to re-find yourself, and it's just confusing. It's just a lot, and it can be quite taxing on the heart, on the brain. Just even
Definitely.
physically, you can even feel like, oh, I need to stay in bed all day because you feel so tired
Exactly.
from fighting this battle, whatever battle it is, right? Of trying
Mm-hmm.
to change and then also not trying to change and then holding on and then holding on. It's just a lot to carry. But once that acceptance comes in, then you can start setting those stones, the foundation of these relationships or these things that you're trying to rebuild, right? Or build anew. Because you can now see clearly. It's always in hindsight, these things. That's the
Exactly.
problem about growing and changing. Like in the moment, you can't see the lesson
Mm-hmm.
that you're about to learn. In the moment, it's like, this is the most devastating thing I'm experiencing right now. What do I even do? Where do I go? How do I begin? But once you accept it, you start seeing and you reflect, like how we're reflecting now that, oh, okay, actually, it was, wouldn't say it was a good thing, but it's been positive, it's been productive that this thing happened because now I can say 1, 2, 3 and move on to 1, 2, 3.
Yes,
You
yes.
know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Always hindsight because at that start you don't know what that looks like. You don't know what the outcome of that situation is. So it's always like so scary because especially if it's like if it means that you have to let go of like people and stuff, like
Mm.
especially like when you've grown to love people and you care about people and sometimes you have very like unhealthy relationships with people but you still love that person.
Yeah.
And sometimes, like when you go into a phase of growth and you're trying to elevate yourself, sometimes it means that you have to leave certain people behind or certain traits behind. And it can look really, really scary. But I think just the challenge that, like, when you're working on yourself, there's nothing negative that happens. Like, whoever
Mm.
goes with you, someone that's meant to be with you, there's seasons for people. Some people come and go, and some are here to stay. And that's okay. It's just trying to accept that the universe is placing people around you that are for the purpose or the next chapter of your life or wherever it is that you're going.
Definitely. I think that then leads to my point. My biggest takeaway from last year was rejection is redirection.
Mm-hmm.
And this has been my motto this year now because I felt like that's the driving force of me feeling positive about negative experiences too.
Mm-hmm.
So at the beginning of last year, I applied to this poetry online magazine thing and I didn't get it. And I sent it to all my friends that write. And one of my friends did get in and I was so happy for her. I just felt like, wow, she really deserves to be in this thing because it's her vibe. It matches her aesthetic. Even the way
Yeah.
she writes, it was so her. And I was disappointed and it it put me down because I felt like my writing wasn't great, and I just felt really inadequate in that area, and I stopped writing for a little bit.
Yeah.
But then at the end of the year, I tried again. I tried again to a different magazine, and I got into that one, and that's the one that I got into matched my vibe. It was
Mm,
so me, and I'm so grateful to those girls that did the magazine. But then even when I submitted it to the second one at the end of the year, I was doubting myself so much,
yeah.
because they took weeks to respond, and the date that they had said the magazine was launching was approaching so fast, and the whole time it was coming close, I was like, damn, they're not responding to me because I didn't get in, I didn't get in, I didn't get in, and I was putting myself so down, and I
Mm,
didn't even think what I wrote was worth it. It was only when I spoke to my partner, and he was reading it, and he's like, but bro, like, you wrote really well, like, this is great, even if you don't get in, this is a really good piece of work, so it
yeah.
doesn't matter what they say. it's it's about what you have done. Are you proud of the work that you've produced? And after that, that's when I felt like, okay, even if I don't get in, like, I'm cool. I
Mm-hmm.
still feel like I did great in this one. And that
Mm-hmm.
piece, I wrote it from such a painful point. It was to release so much trauma and pain that I'd experienced. And the fact that I still felt sad about it, and I felt like it wasn't good enough to get into places or to be published, it really added more to the negativity that I was feeling from that trauma. But the
Yeah.
moment I reframed how I thought about that piece, that, okay, but look at how beautiful it is. I was able to express myself into release, and I added so much positive experiences around that negative experience. It felt
Mm-hmm.
so good, and I felt so proud of it. And I wanted to show everybody. And the moment I felt that way, then I got the email from the girl saying, "Oh, Tina, you're in now. It's going to be published on this date. You're going to be on these pages. You should come read your piece." And it was good. And I went and read my piece in front of people, which is scary,
Mm-hmm.
but then it also showed me that I want to do that for a living too. You know, leading up to this podcast as well, that I just want to speak. I just want to talk, 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 talk. And it's just been positive from that point forward when it comes to my writing, because it introduced me to me wanting to speak, me wanting to do many things. But the point I'm trying to drive is all the negative experiences that I got last year from trying to submit my writing and not getting in led me to the point where I was ready enough to accept that sometimes when things don't come my way, it's because it's not for me, you
Mm-hmm.
know. And I was thinking, if I had got into the magazine at the beginning of the year, would I have been ready or prepared enough to go and stand in front of a group of people and read my work in front of them? I don't
Yeah.
think so. I wouldn't have had the courage to do so. I would have been shy. I would have shied. I don't think I would have even gone to the launch of the thing, because I would have been so scared to just have people perceive me. I wouldn't have felt as confident. Like, I just know I wasn't ready then. But at the end of the year, I'd built my courage, my confidence so much that even if nobody responded positively to what I had produced, it would have still been a great experience for me.
Wow, that is actually so powerful. And I also do and have come to believe that rejection is right
Mm,
redirection, and I appreciate that you said that, because it actually speaks to this book that I read about early, I mean, end of last year actually was, and it's called The Purpose Driven Life, and it talks about obviously like trying to find your purpose and trying to find your voice and standing in the world. And it often says that, like, if even if the voice that you have, like whether you like your, what's it, like you're right for feeling like, am I gonna get it this time, like it's relevant basically to the situation that's at hand. It says that it will all, but the inner voice will always like interpret in terms of the past. So like, for instance, like if it didn't work before, you'll see and judge the present through the eyes of how it was to the past. So it has like a distorted view. So
mm,
it's saying that because obviously it didn't work before and maybe it didn't work out, you're just like, oh, is this going to work though? What if I don't get it? What if I'm not good enough and all that stuff? And then it just challenges you to like, just look at it with a fresh pair of eyes and say, okay, but where am I now? I'm ready
mm,
now. I didn't know this. Maybe sometimes when you, I know like, especially like when you're writing a story, sometimes you think it's great. And then if you just wait a little bit longer, like 3 months,
Yeah.
you see something and you're like, oh my God, I want to say this. I feel like I want to express myself in this way. I think this is what goes. And then you end up like just building more on what you thought was a great idea. So I feel like you're kind of like in fermentation, like in terms of like how you're gonna present yourself and how confident you're gonna grow. But obviously in that moment, you're just thinking, no, like, why does this
Yeah.
work? But it had to happen that way. And I'm not even sure, maybe you wouldn't have seen that book, that you're like the
Exactly. Yeah, yeah,
magazine,
yeah. I
maybe would have
wouldn't
not
have.
been published, because you'd have already, if you got that when you got it, maybe, you know what I mean, you wouldn't have seen this opportunity, maybe you wouldn't have looked at that time, because you're just
Mm,
literally fresh off of another opportunity that you just feel like high in that. But you got more than you expected, if that makes sense, even though it
definitely.
felt like rejection at the time.
Definitely, definitely. And I think just to add on to that is just when you have an idea, when you have a purpose or you need to fulfill something, that thing will never leave your mind until you do it.
Mm-hmm.
So ever since that time when I submitted in January, the first time when I got rejected, writing for a magazine, writing for an online publication, or just putting my work outside of my own personal publication, just sending it out to people was always on my mind. And I
Mm-hmm.
submitted this piece that got published in December.
Mm-hmm.
So you can imagine January to December is 12 months. That's
Exactly.
365 days, bro.
Mm-hmm.
And it was constantly feeding on my mind. Constantly, every time I would go online and I would be seeing so many opportunities, but I wouldn't submit. I would let the deadlines pass and go, pass and go, pass and go. Because I was just afraid of taking that action, of being rejected, to be honest. Just getting any rejection is bad. Even just, you just feel, you don't feel great, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Even just with job applications, like that whole process of just looking for a job is difficult. And getting rejections all the time, it's like, damn, what am I doing so wrong? And you
Exactly.
start internalizing all these things. But at the end of the day, how I've started seeing like what we're talking about is just saying to myself, well, that's not my door anyway. I'm not meant to open that door. I'm not meant to open that door. And seeing it as practice, that I'm practicing fixing my CV. I'm practicing doing interviews. I'm practicing for the job that will actually be meant for me.
Exactly.
And it's been so helpful with just having a more positive outlook on life in
Mm-hmm.
comparison to before, where I'm sitting down and shaming myself over these opportunities that I feel I've missed. When in
Mm-hmm.
actuality, nothing, like you said exactly before, nothing that is meant for you will ever leave you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like it will be yours. Like it will be as simple as that. It will be yours. When the time
Yeah.
is right, it will come. And once it
Mm-hmm.
comes, you'll be like, oh, wow, I've been waiting for you for so long. And you feel great. You know, you don't doubt it. It feels comfortable. Even if you feel uncomfortable, it's not that uncomfortable, like I want to run away. It's that uncomfortable of like, oh, I'm actually growing here. My mind is expanding. I'm
Mm-hmm.
becoming a better person. You know, it's positive outlooks on life,
Yeah.
basically, on that experience. Yeah.
Exactly, exactly. And that whole thing also ties into the second thing that I learned about I mean, I guess learned from last year, which was like the power of reflection. Because I
Mm,
feel like one of like my biggest shifts was learning how to look at like lessons that I'm in, the lessons that I'm going through, as like, rather than why is this happening to me? Because I had a lot of why is this happening to me
mm,
moments last year, where I just felt sad and worn out. Like, is my life going to change? Like, what does this mean for me? And now I'm trying to ask the question, like, what is this trying to teach me? Like, what am I going to learn from this? And like, what's my biggest takeaway in this waiting season? Like, whether it is like waiting for a job or waiting for an opportunity, what can I do in the meantime? Because obviously I've had a lot of downtime, especially not like fresh out of uni and not working. And the downtime has given me more room to work on myself. Obviously, at the time, when I finished uni towards the end of last year, I just felt so sad that I wasn't working. Don't get me wrong, I still have some sadness that I'm not working. However, the person that I've become, like mentally, is completely different. And I don't think that like I would have had as much time to work on me as an individual, where like I feel like I can literally breathe again if I hadn't had this time. So now I feel like it makes sense why this is happening, if that makes sense, why I had to go through what I had to learn about myself. And one thing that I listened to recently in a sermon, it said that like God doesn't waste pain. Like if you're going to go through something, it's always something that's meant to build you. It's meant to build something inside of you, and that sometimes delay is actually divine preparation. Like there's something that you're being prepared for, even though you don't see it in that time. So now I'm just trying to always reflect, like, okay, this is not going, but where do we go from here? The same way, like, obviously, you said you needed more time to build up on your confidence and so that you can do the book and all that stuff. So just looking at it from a new perspective, that's always positive, because I mean you can choose to either like look at it from a negative standpoint, or you can instead choose to look at it from a positive standpoint. And I have decided that it's less stressful to look at it from a positive standpoint. And if you just feel like you're losing control, like try and put more focus on the things that you can control rather than the things that you can, like, what can I do in this moment instead?
Definitely. That links on to my second point as well about how fun life actually is when you have a different perspective on things. So obviously we touched this on point one,
Mm-hmm.
but how you view a situation is definitely how fun your life will be or how enjoyable that experience will be.
Mm-hmm.
Simple example is if someone yells at you, okay, not yells at you, but if you go into a shop and the attendee is just really, really mean towards you, right? You could actually fight back. You could scream back and you could say as much profanity towards them and really just ruin both your days, right? But if you
Mm-hmm.
look at it like, okay, this one is not none of my business, whatever they're going through has nothing to do with me, and you walk out of the shop and you just walk away and go to the next shop, you're gonna forget it. By the time you get to the corner of the street, you are cool. Literally, you would have forgotten everything that happened in that situation.
Literally.
So for me, exactly like what you said, that of course, like, you can experience bad days or sad days, but majority of the time it's more positive because of how you're responding to a situation. So for me, I really felt like last year it transformed how I viewed all the negative situations that I've been in,
Mm-hmm.
and it made me excited for what I could do with that information. So all the trauma I've experienced, I feel like I could create something from it. I could tell a story. I could talk about it on this podcast. I could tell a friend. I could encourage other people. I could literally move the world in a positive direction so that those things don't happen to those people.
Mm-hmm.
But also for myself to feel more empowered, to feel like I'm capable of succeeding in this life, and just smiling more.
Mm-hmm.
Because on the days when I was looking at things with a negative view, my days were really gloomy and dark.
Yeah.
Like I didn't even have any hope towards anything. I was going to work, I was doing my business, I was doing whatever it had to do, hang out with my friends, but most of the time I was really down in the dumps, and nothing felt great.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing felt fruitful. I was just like, well, it's another day. Well, it's another day. Well, it's another day. And I'd get out of bed and be dragging my feet the whole day. But the
Mm-hmm.
moment I switched my mind and I said, okay, Tina, but like, think about it like this. How could you respond to a situation? If you smiled a bit more, if you were grateful for the day that you experienced, what happens? And truly, I've been smiling more. Nothing bothers me anymore. Someone can say whatever it is that they want to say to me, and I can be affected. I can be sad in the moment, and I'll feel sad for whatever, a day or a few hours. But after that, I'm like, oh, I remember I have to watch my favorite show, and I go watch my favorite show, and I go eat my favorite food, and I feel better. And while I'm eating, I just feel grateful that I've been granted the opportunity to even taste, to even have taste buds, to even be able to decipher between what's the garlicky and what's the salt. You
Mm-hmm.
get what I mean? And it has made my life so much more exciting. Like, I'm more excited about aging. I'm more excited about my birthdays. I'm more excited about my friends being around. I'm more excited about my family. Like, everything is just butterflies and sunshine all the
Mm-hmm.
time.
Yeah.
Not to say, like you said, not to say that you don't experience sad days. I do, but it's more happy days than sad days. And I
Definitely.
can get myself out of that way by saying, remember that life is so great.
Mm-hmm.
And then it is. After I say that, I'll just be smiling all day, and it's just wow. And I'll call Nicole and I say hi, and then we just laugh and giggle, and it's just good vibes.
Oh my God, yes, to
And
be fair.
that's it. And we just talk about silly things. Whereas
I
opposed
know.
to yeah, as opposed to before when I would be negative and I would come and I would be venting to Nicole, our conversations would literally be negative the whole 3 hours, and me and Nicole will talk for time. Our conversations would be so, so, so dreadful. We'd
That's
be
so good.
venting. I vent, she vents. I vent, she vents. I vent, she vents. And then at the end of it, we're like, hey, but life is tough, you know?
Yeah,
And
it is
then,
tough. And we're so tired in the end as well. You go to bed
exactly.
drained.
Yeah. But now our conversations are more productive. Like, literally, we talk about the silliest of things now. Even when we have nothing to say, there's always something to say that's so silly, and we'll
Always.
be laughing all day. So I think it's been so helpful
Yeah.
like that because it's influenced my relationship with Nicole and hers with mine because of how we've shifted how we view things, be more positive about
Hmm.
things.
Hmm. And I've actually enjoyed every moment of it. And one of the things that made me realize that like you and I were actually in a different frequency, definitely not low vibration vibe,
Yeah.
was when like I don't remember, like obviously something had happened, and I feel like genuinely people have this thing where like they actually genuinely think that maybe we're lingering or thinking about things, but we actually forgot.
Yeah,
That's like
yeah,
one
yeah.
thing, like when you're so happy, let's just say you have a disagreement with someone or you fall out or whatever, like that's as far as I think about it. After
Mm,
that, like I've forgotten because I'm on to happiness. Like I'm chasing
mm,
where happy is. I'm chasing where good vibes are. Like I actually don't have time to like, because sometimes like when something happens, especially when you have like some friends that are like mutual friends and stuff, they be like, "Oh, did this person tell you this?" Well, like
mm.
no, because we want to spend our separate relationship talking about more things that are a bit like more fun and easygoing.
Yeah,
Like we just want to be
lighthearted.
sad. Like we want to
Yeah,
be sad and all that stuff. So I've actually really like enjoyed having this positive mindset rather than dwelling on the negative. I actually feel like I always have more energy, and I always know that like when I'm having a bad day or if I'm having like a slow day, by the time we end the call, like you know sometimes I don't even want to smile when you call me.
mm,
Then I just
mm.
start giggling, you know what I mean? Like I start giggling, and then in the end, like when I end the call, I'm actually not so sad anymore. Whereas
Mm.
before would have probably been dwelling on the fact that I was sad and would just be sad the whole time, and then we leave the phone and I'm still sad. Do you know what I mean? Now like there's room to giggle and just remember that life is good. Like you know you can enjoy life.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
definitely, definitely, definitely. And I've been
Mm-hmm.
enjoying it as well. I think it's quite. I just feel like a silly girl, you know,
Yeah.
especially like you said, like sometimes when we call it, I'm just feeling down, and then afterwards it's like, what was I even sad about? You
Mm-hmm.
know, and it just feels better. And I feel like I've heard this a lot just about how to transform the relationships around you. That if you want to change, if you're having a difficult relationship with someone, that the best way to do that, instead of trying to control them and tell them to say, hey, like, bro, be better, do better, da 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 da, change how you are, how you respond to things. So if your family member is really a negative person, which is true, like people are negative in families and in friendship groups, but if someone is really negative towards you, how you respond to them is how you change that dynamic. So instead of
Mm-hmm.
usually if they say something negative and you say a petty remark back, when you just stop it, they'll be shocked by that because like, oh, you're not responding. And the next time they do it, you don't respond again. Next time they do it, they don't respond. And they'll see that there's a shift, that things are changing. And
Mm-hmm.
that change in yourself makes you less prone to being affected by that thing.
Definitely.
Not to say it's easy, but it's a step. You
Yeah.
know, it's a step. So how you that dynamic is how you change that dynamic. How you
Definitely.
respond to that dynamic is how you change that dynamic. And people say this about, you know, just Mel Robbins says this, you know, we're
All the
quoting Mel
time.
Robbins again. Yeah, she says this all the time about changing relationships with people who just bring you down, but also family dynamics, friend dynamics. If there's something that you really don't like, instead of trying to change the next person, change yourself and see what happens. And that's
Mm-hmm.
exactly what happened with me and Nicole. Just going through conversations about breakups and life and you know struggles as an immigrant and just those things. How we started changing those conversations really made us feel more positive, and that led to the growth of this podcast, because without those we wouldn't have had this podcast, because we
Definitely.
realized that we're actually having so much productive conversations and our lives are actually moving and progressing. Things were just happening, and it was like, whoa, okay, there's a shift, there's a big
Yeah.
shift.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Defo. Defo. Oh my God. That's, it was actually really good to be fair. I've enjoyed it.
Yeah.
Um, I will move on to the last thing I can think of that obviously I took away from last
Yeah.
year. And it's like to just learn to be kinder to myself. Like,
Mm.
it's very important, like, to like express that, like, for a lot of people, because I feel like there were so many moments where I was like really hard on myself and I was questioning about like if I was doing things okay, if I was gonna like get something or receive something, or if I like feeling enough and all that stuff. And obviously looking back now, like I just wish that like obviously I affirmed myself more and reminded myself that even if like I don't know what's happening or whatever, I'm still growing and becoming like the person I'm meant to be. So I'm trying moving forward to just like embrace myself, be compassionate to myself, just be a little bit kinder to myself, or at least a lot more kinder to myself. And that's one thing that I've been like practicing, and also just accepting that even if I'm feeling stuck, it's like that's okay, because obviously some growths are very silent.
Mm.
And I feel like I've seen a lot of silent growths in the last 4 months within myself, that like I just look, I'm like, ah, do you know what I mean? When did you come about? Because I used to be very, very anxious, and I used to be a massive overthinker. I think I'm still an overthinker, but obviously it's more like overthinking towards positive things rather than when I was overthinking towards a lot of negative things. And then I just woke up one day and I just didn't even feel anxious anymore. I was like, oh, like when did you happen? So it's like one of those like silent growths that like even though you don't see the results, like it doesn't mean that nothing's changing. It's like the roots of a tree like that are underground, under the soil. Like you don't know before the tree ever shows
Yeah.
that there was a seed under there.
Mm.
So I'm trying to just be more like, okay, something is happening, something is shifting, and that's okay. Just like trusting the process and being patient. And I feel like I heard someone say that when you ask for patience, when you ask for anything from God, like, oh God, please bless me with patience, He will put you in a situation that requires you to be patient. That's how you
Yeah.
be patient. It doesn't just come. He'll give you an opportunity to be patient. He'll give you an opportunity to love. He'll give you an opportunity to forgive. So you don't like say, God, give me a forgiving heart, and then bam, the heart is just forgiving.
Mm.
He'll give you an opportunity where someone does something and it requires you to forgive. So it's just like just having more compassion and empathy to myself. That's what I'm going through this year, and just loving on myself a bit more, and just listening to myself, my
Yeah.
intuitions, and trusting what I'm hearing. I think a lot of that has happened for me in the last couple of weeks, like where I feel like I know something is so clear in my head, and it touches back on our topic last week about like obviously following like your gut and your instincts. And I've done that a lot recently, and just trusting that, okay, I know what I said I wanted. Let me stick by it, even though it seems like, ugh, let me just trust that this is what I said I wanted. Let me follow through. And that's really worked for me.
Mm. I think what you said about that when you're tested, right? When you ask for something, then you're tested in that way. It's like building a muscle. When you sprained your muscle, you've broken your arm, you have to go for physiotherapy to kind of retrain the thing. You have to really be exposed to that negative thing or that situation in order to learn how to handle yourself in that situation.
Oh,
Because, like you said, like there's no way you can ask for to learn how to forgive or to have a forgiving heart and then not be exposed to that. And the thing about being tested is that you really be exposed to that thing during that situation. There's no way that you can ask for something and then not be exposed immediately. So even just being more kind and compassionate to yourself, you're going to be put through situations where you have to console yourself and be kind to yourself. Where you see yourself being a perfectionist and not reaching that level of perfection, or doing something and you're embarrassed, or do something and you just feel guilty. You really have to be exposed to those things to then come to yourself and say, oh, okay, Nicole, it's fine. It's fine. Don't think about it too much. It's okay. Look how you actually really positive. Look at all the things that you've achieved, da 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 da, and kind of build yourself in that way.
Definitely.
And that's the funny thing about life. That's the funny thing about God. It's like you really, really, really will be put into that situation when you ask for it. So that's why people always say, be careful what you ask for, because you have to be ready for those things,
Yeah.
honestly. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. And if you think of it, like if you knew that everything that you're being hard on yourself about, or the things that you're praying for are aligning, you'd actually spend more time encouraging yourself rather than
Yeah.
doubting. If you just had faith that things are aligning, like if you knew that something's definitely going to happen, you wouldn't be spending time like being hard on yourself, like, are you going to get it though? Are you good enough? Whatever. If you already knew it was happening, you'd be actually like saying, it's okay, you can do this, you're
Yeah.
going to get this anyway, like you got this, like if you were more on a positive mindset of like everything is aligning, everything that I'm praying for is coming into fruition, then you would spend a lot more time being extra kind to yourself.
Yeah, definitely. For me, my third point is, which is my final point as well, is taking risks. And this is something that you always say is you miss 100% of the chances you don't take.
Defo.
And I really, really carried that with me towards the end of last year. Because, like I said, that's when I applied when I submitted my work into this magazine that I got published in. But then in October, I applied into a mentorship for creatives. And to be honest, at that time, I didn't even feel like I qualified to be there, because it's run by a creative agency and they do things on marketing, branding, those types of things. And I don't work in that field at all. I work in events. I work with charities. So it's a very different area. Not very different, but it's quite far. So when I applied, I was so nervous. And I remember texting my friend saying, oh, like, I'm not even sure if I'm going to go in, but we'll just see what happens and whatever. And I got in, I was like selected out of 10, I was selected out of 45 people to be part of 10, a group of 10 girls. And I could not believe it, because even when I was speaking to the girls and the things that they do and their creativity and how much they've achieved in their careers, these are people younger than me and slightly older than me. I just felt like, whoa, do I even deserve to be in this spot at all? And then I remembered that it's because I took a chance and I took that risk, even though I was doubting myself and even though I felt like I'm not ready, I'm not qualified enough to be a part of this. I got what I needed from there. I was meant to be there. That's what I kept reminding myself, that every risk that I take, I'm meant to learn something from that. There's always a lesson. It just goes back to the rejection and redirection thing, but there's always a lesson, whether that's positive or negative. It's just meant to help me grow. And from that mentorship, I learned how to run my business better and how to be more creative and apply myself in a more creative way in order to succeed, not only my business, but also at work, and just showed me the possibilities. Because me living in Leicester is different from people who live in London. In London, you see everything. It's the capital city, of course. Like, there's opportunities every corner. People do different types of jobs that you see on TV and all. And being in Leicester is quite small. It's a small scale. You have the regular jobs that everyone usually has when you finish uni, right? So me going to that mentorship really exposed me to the possibilities of the world. And I think I needed that to just be re-inspired to do
Yeah.
stuff for the world, which is something that I felt like I had lost after uni, after studying my business. I just felt like I was lacking that creativity. I was lacking the opportunities. I just didn't know where I fit into the world. And being in there, I saw the possibilities, and it's made me feel more positive about just life
Yeah.
and what I am capable of doing. And ever since then, I've applied to everything that I've seen, every single thing that I've seen. And just now, I was telling Nicole that I saw an open audition to do musical theater here in Leicester. Have I done musical theater before? No. Is it something that looks interesting? Yeah, why not? And we'll see what happens with that, because why not? For the
Yeah.
plot, right? But I won't lose anything from that. And the more I practice that habit of taking risks, the more easier it gets to be fearless. And that's
Definitely.
the ultimate goal for me, is to be fearless, because life is on the other side of fear.
Mm-hmm.
Everything that I want, the person who I want to be, the person that I want to meet, the person that I want to be friends with is on the other side of that fear. Just taking that step to talk to someone, to tell them your idea, to talk to a friend, to make a new friend, to really hone into the person that I want to be is just to try.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Good
Mm-hmm.
things come from trying. And we talked about this last time, just about content creators, that the rise of TikTok has been the best for me because it's shown me how when you put effort into something, how these content creators put effort into something, how that grows. And they start with one follower all the way to 100,000 and then a million. And then you see them on TV, they're interviewing Aaron Pierre. And it's like, whoa, bro, just last week you were in your room. Did you even
Yeah.
expect to be here? It's because they just take those risks constantly and
Mm-hmm.
continuously, and things just transform day after day after day. And it goes back to your point about how sometimes it's slow growth. You don't even realize until you look back and say, oh, you're new. When did you get here? You
Mm-hmm.
know, because every day is just progress. But when you reflect and you look back, you're like, wow, like, look at how far I've come. Look at the things that I'm doing now. And it adds up and you become your biggest dream.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And I really love that you said that your opportunities in life are on the other side of fear. That was so powerful. And it's just knowing that like the version of you that's going to come out of the place where like you're fearful or you're scared to try is always going to thank that version of you that kept going even when it
Mm,
didn't make sense. The version of you that dared to try, like say, let me do this, let me try. And just trust that like obviously you're being prepared rather than feeling that life is always punishing you. Just take it as life is prepared.
yeah.
Right. So the fact that you were able to like get into that program, even though you felt like people were more advanced or further along in whatever marketing thing that they were doing, you were able to be exposed to what your life could potentially look like. And that's because you literally dared to try. And that's why we stress about like obviously just taking the chance because you don't lose anything from applying. If it works, that's amazing. If it doesn't work, like, next on to the next thing you're gonna
Yeah.
apply. Like life never stops. I heard
Mm,
someone say that like the moment you finish something, you go on to the next thing. It's like when you read a book, like you can read a book for
mm,
the rest of your life and there will still be another book to read because you can never stop learning. There's always something out there that you can still learn. So it's just always trying to think like, okay, what else can I do that aligns with what I want? There's always room to just keep trying. There's always gonna be something to apply for.
yeah,
Even if this
definitely.
thing doesn't work, there's gonna be a new program next month, next year. There's always going to be something to apply for. So you have to just keep applying or keep trying because something is going to give for sure.
Definitely.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely. Oh, this
Mm-hmm.
was so lovely. I feel so positive after this.
Same.
Yeah. I don't know. I was feeling down in the dumps actually,
Like get
but
out.
in the ghetto for real. But after this, I feel more invigorated.
Yes.
Yeah, to keep
Yes.
trying and just keep doing stuff. So I'm so grateful.
Yeah, I feel the same way too. Like I feel like okay, I'm ready to see what this year has for us and for me and for you and obviously for the listener as well. Like
Mm.
obviously like trying to like get excited for what 2025 is gonna bring. So yeah, guys.
Yeah, because it's never too
Oh my
late to
God.
really implement these things, like, yes, we are reaching the end of the first quarter, but you still have as many months, you have 9 months more to do stuff. You know,
Mm-hmm.
any day
Mm-hmm.
is a good day to
Definitely,
start. Yeah.
definitely. Yeah, definitely. Well, guys, thank you so much for sharing this space with us again. Please don't forget to like, subscribe, or share this episode if it spoke to you to someone that you care about or you love. And until next time, these are the thoughts we share. I'm Nicole.
And I'm Tina Aishe. Thank you so much for listening. Bye.